Hey, what's going on guys? Arekkz here. Welcome back to another video for Borderlands 3. And in this one I want to talk some more about the legendary weapons, or the kind of notable weapons in the new DLC. If you guys got a video the other day, then we put together a kind of a rundown of all the legendary items you can get from the DLC so far. And there was, I think, about 23 items if memory serves me correctly, so there's quite a lot. And of course, whenever the new DLC comes out, there is that question of, what is worth my time? Do I want to farm all these weapons, or are half of them an utter waste of time? And with that being said, at the time, we'd obviously just farmed them. I was showing you guys what they could do. Since then, we've had a chance to go through and test them slightly more so. So in this video, I want to put together a list of the 10 best legendary weapons. Well, actually 9 legendaries and 1 epic, but 10 best weapons from the DLC that you should definitely consider trying to pick up. So if you guys do enjoy this, then a like would be super appreciated. Comment down below, let me know what you guys think. Let me know if there are any weapons that you like from the DLC that maybe I didn't mention. And of course, be sure to keep it locked for plenty more. Also worth noting, most of these can be farmed from pretty much anywhere. The bosses seem to drop pretty much everything throughout the DLC. There weren't really any items that we found like exclusively from one boss, bar say the bloom, which just seemed to come from the final boss. So for most of these, we were just farming the final boss and they kind of just tended to drop pretty frequently. Anyway, with that being said, coming in at number 1, we have the complex root, which is a Maliwan sniper and probably one of the strongest weapons in the new DLC. This comes in any element, which of course is incredibly useful. If you happen to run, one of those strong elemental builds, then you're definitely going to get good value out of this. Behavior-wise, it shoots out multiple projectiles which zigzag in the air briefly before exploding and dealing a ton of splash damage, and if you pair this with the right build, it is capable of clearing entire rooms. It is very powerful. Do keep in mind, if you've got a build with a lot of splash damage, you can also kill yourself with this weapon, so kind of be careful, but it is actually very strong when paired with the right build. Moving on from there, we then have the Flipper, which is a Maliwan SMG. This one, again, elemental weapon. It creates more projectiles the longer you fire it. And this is basically just a pretty strong weapon, good at melting enemies, and just, again, a good all-round elemental weapon for those of you guys that are spec'd for that type of play.
Take them out.
The same can also be said for the next weapon on the list, which is the Light Show. I mentioned in the last video that is actually one of my favourite weapons just from a visual point of view, but this one is a Vladov pistol. It's got that kind of cool electric look all over it. It shoots a barrage of fast moving projectiles in a circular pattern. Again, high damage, great elemental options, so pairing this with one of those kind of builds that are definitely tuned for elements, you can definitely get some great mileage out of this gun. After that, we then have the Gargoyle, which is also an incredibly cool weapon. Honestly, anytime we get to use COV stuff more, I'm just really happy because COV stuff is just really cool, by design, by behavior. But this is actually really good. Of course, it rapidly shoots projectiles as well as globs of corrosive elements, and that makes it one of the best weapons at ripping through armor. So yeah, I mean, if you guys have got bosses or you're fighting bosses with, heavy armor, this is a great armor killer. After that, we then have the unkempt Herald, of course, the Torgue pistol, returning weapon from Borderlands 2, shoots out a line of explosive projectiles. It's an incredibly powerful weapon, and basically, it just does a good amount of decent damage. It's not the best, I'll admit, but it is a viable weapon. So, if you're kind of wondering whether it's going to replace maybe some of your best weapons, maybe it won't, but, if you kind of compare it to the list of things in the DLC, it is definitely up there as one of the better weapons. You then have the Contained Blast. This is a Torgue assault rifle, fires both an explosive projectile as well as a sticky bomb at the same time. And this one again does a lot of splash damage. It's best on characters who can make use of explosive or splash damage. So, you think maybe the Moe's splash damage build, things like that. But if you can really, take advantage of that playstyle, then this one can be pretty good for you. Next up on the list, we have the proprietary license, which is a Hyperion SMG, and this is actually one of the new high damage SMGs in the game. The crits for this one ricochet, body shots will of course apply stickies, and it shoots a 5-round burst. I mentioned before that the actual behavior for it is actually pretty cool, but most importantly, it is just a high damage elemental SMG, and yeah, if that kind of fits your build, then maybe this might be worth your time. After that, we then have the dowsing rod, the Vladov AR, which has 2 modes for it, and this can come in any element. The grenade launcher mode fires 3 grenades that take on elemental damage, and the grenades are fairly powerful compared to, the regular firing mode, and of course you have the regular mode as well. Again, not necessarily the most powerful one when compared to everything else, but it does have decent damage. The kind of grenades do a good chunk of damage, so that is definitely one of the better weapons. Then moving on from there to the last legendary weapon, which is the stone thrower. This is the Jacob's sniper. Bullets for this one, of course, ricochet several times whenever you hit an enemy. And, Jacob's weapons typically hit pretty hard anyway. And obviously the ricochet nature makes it good in a crowd. Again, this is one of those ones that, not necessarily the best, but it is definitely still a viable option, especially when you compare it to some of the other offerings. This definitely belongs in the kind of top 10 list. And then finally, the last one is actually an epic weapon. It is called the Pea Shooter, and this one shreds enemies very quickly if you can get rapid headshots. It's a Jacob's pistol, and the critical causes explosive projectiles to shoot off the enemy, dealing massive damage. So yeah, considering this isn't even a legendary, should be easier to come by, then that is definitely a weapon that if you get it, because there is that tendency when you're playing through the DLC, if you just like, if it's not gold, why do I bother kind of thing. So yeah, definitely don't sleep on this one. Anyway, that's it for the time being. That's a quick look at a few of the weapons that you might want to consider picking up from the DLC. Hopefully you guys found that helpful. Again, if you guys have got any more that you particularly like that I didn't mention, call them out in the comments down below. And of course, be sure to keep it locked for plenty more. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that video. Don't forget, if you haven't already done so, you can join the Arekkz Gaming Discord. We've got an awesome community over there with so many different channels for you to chat loads of different topics and different games. I'm in there, the team's in there if you guys want to chat with us, find people to play with. It's just in general a great place to be. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to turn on those notifications so you don't miss any of our future uploads.